Well, we all know that powerful cartels have made a fortune in the drug trade along the U.S.-Mexico border. And now rogue dictators and Islamic terrorist groups are following their example. Surprise. And once again, our old friend Hugo Chavez is at the center of it all. Watch this. Although Al-Qaeda, Hezbollah, and Hugo Chavez differ in many ways, they share a common enemy, the United States. And according to U.S. officials, drug smuggling also connects and helps fund these dangerous networks. West Africa is the center of their interest in this multi-billion-dollar business.
Virtually every flight that goes to West Africa today that is bearing cocaine or other drugs is coming from Venezuela.
Former State Department official Roger Noriega says Venezuelan President Hugo Chavez is well aware that drug shipments are flowing from his territory.
We have explicit evidence, and our government has sanctioned Venezuelan officials who have been involved in drug trafficking.
He says Chavez has long-standing ties to Colombian drug traffickers.
It's well established that even before he was president, he had ties to these guerrillas and to the narco-traffickers. And he has basically made Venezuelan territory readily available to them.
According to recent reports from both the United Nations and the U.S. State Department, Venezuela has become a major trafficker to Europe and elsewhere. An African government official with intimate knowledge of the transatlantic drug trade explained West Africa's part in this equation to CBN News. Thousands of drug shipments depart each year from northeastern Venezuela en route to West Africa. Some arrive through clandestine flights and others by fishing vessels. Once they arrive in West Africa, the drugs are transported northward to their final destination, Europe, where demand for cocaine is skyrocketing. Rudy Atala is a former Africa counterterrorism director for the Department of Defense. He says once the drugs arrive in Africa, Islamic terrorist groups are often waiting in the wings.
Al-Qaeda basically charges for the passage of the drugs through their territory.
Thanks to a global crackdown on its funding sources, Al-Qaeda is increasingly turning to drugs to finance its operations. 3 Al-Qaeda agents from North Africa recently pleaded guilty to drug smuggling and terrorism charges in a U.S. federal court. They admitted to working with Colombian drug traffickers.
That access to money gives them capabilities in the future to attack soft targets in Africa. And the soft targets could be U.S. embassies, Israeli embassies, French, UK embassies.
Al-Qaeda is following the example of its fellow Islamic terror group, Hezbollah, which has used drug money to fund its operations for years.
Hezbollah spread all across West Africa, starting from Senegal. They have a vast array of connections with the drug dealers. And so it's a natural flow where you have facilitation by Hezbollah in Africa to move drugs coming from Latin America and West Africa and up into Europe.
The drug trade is just one of many revenue streams for Hezbollah in Africa.
Hezbollah is involved in the diamond trade, they're involved in gold, they're involved in every smuggling business you can get your hands on. All the money that Hezbollah makes always goes to Lebanon, southern Lebanon, to support war against Israel, to support their agenda.
Noriega says that ultimately the nexus between drugs and terrorism originates in our hemisphere, and U.S. officials must be more proactive in fighting it. CBN News contacted the Venezuelan embassy in Washington for comment on this story. We were directed to a summary paper on the embassy's website that says the United States is politicizing the fight against drugs and disqualifying the notable efforts and results produced by Venezuela on the issue. Venezuela handed over 2 drug trafficking suspects to the U.S. last month, but American officials say much more cooperation is needed. Sanctions against Venezuela over its drug smuggling complicity were considered under President George W. Bush. But the Obama administration so far has been reluctant to go in that direction.